Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea Talks podcast. I know it has been a while you haven't heard from me. I have been so busy, but I guess it's just a part of a process we call growth. When I started this podcast, it was just different. I wasn't working at the time and I had a lot of free time on my hands, but now I'm very busy. But let's talk about growth. And what inspired me to talk about growth is Isaiah chapter 60, verses, verse 22, which says, I, the Lord, will hasten it in its time. In its time. And that's the latter part of the scripture. The entire scripture says, the least of you will become 1,000, the smallest a mighty nation. I am the Lord, and I will hasten it in its time. This shows that within time, things grow. In the first episode of Tea Talks podcast, I spoke about change and not being afraid of change. And well, for the past year, Tea Talks podcast actually has changed, and I have changed. In fact, this whole pandemic, the world has changed. And now, while we look back at things that were, or the people who were before this pandemic, and looking at ourselves now, we realize that things don't just change, and it not only change but grows. Yes, things grow. Growth is inevitable, just like change. Let's go deeper into the scripture. It says, a little one shall become a 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in its time. It's all up to time. We normally hear the term time is the master of all things. But really, God controls time, and so He knows when it's best for you to grow. I remember in 2019 when I just started teaching, and I can recall the mistakes that I'd make in pronouncing my words, the way in which I would prepare for classes, even the way in which I'd write my resume. Now, 3 years later, I'm able to see the changes in my teaching and in my professional life. If you look at a small problem for too long, it starts to look big. That's another way in which things grow, and I feel as if that was within my spirit. If you look at a small problem for too long, it starts to look big. And this is where sometimes we major into the minor, right? We let situations grow beyond what it really should be. But let us look at it this way. If a small group of people build on their strengths and would cooperatively and collaboratively work together over a period of time, they become very strong and very competitive. I remember when I believe it was Western STEM Online Academy began, they were very small. And now, because of that small group building on their strengths, advertising, promoting, teaching their students. They've become quite a large group over a period of time. My message to you today is that growth is the process of God stretching you out of your comfort zone. Growth is the process of God stretching you out of your comfort zone. And our comfort zone really isn't a place where we should like to stay. It makes us comfortable. We should aim to grow. It's just like puberty. It happens over a period of time, and you stretch, the voice changes, you perhaps get taller, our bodies start to change in entirety, our minds actually start to change. And what we normally would focus on at the age of 12, by the time we're 17, we're not focusing on that. But then, as we grow older, we tend to learn to have a balance of what we think and how we act. And that's a part of growth. Growth is a process of God stretching you out of your comfort zone. I remember writing about my comfort zone, and I think when God stretches you out of your comfort zone, that's when a breakthrough happens. You break through fear. Comfort zone lets you feel so relaxed. Over a period of time, you feel so relaxed that you become afraid. You become afraid to change. And whether you like it or not, you'd have to change and you'd have to grow. And that's how God stretches you out of your comfort zone. Let's look at Moses, for example. Moses wasn't a talker. He went into the wilderness, stayed into the wilderness for some time. And after that process, God just kept stretching him and stretching him into just doing the things that he wanted him to do, his will. So growth is the process of God stretching you out of your comfort zone. Do you see yourself stepping out of your comfort zone? Or are you just too comfortable there? Maybe that's something we need to consider. Whether we're too comfortable in our comfort zone, that we're not seeing that God sometimes stretches us out of our comfort zone. So let's remember that a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. Do we know why? The Bible says, I, the Lord, will hasten it in its time. Thank you for listening to Tea Talks podcast. Remember to follow me on Instagram and follow me on Facebook. Until then, bye.